Hey guys, we're here today. We're going to make some salt dough, and it's a really easy recipe. The recipe calls for 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of salt, and 1 cup of cold water. I'm going to split that recipe between 2 different bowls. So here we go. So first we'll do the 2 cups of flour. So if you each need 1 cup of flour, what's 1 plus 1? 2. 1 plus 1 is 2. So
Can I have the big one?
you'll each get 1 cup of flour. Can you pour 1 cup of flour in your bowl, Parker? Pour it in your bowl. Good job. All right, Maeve, you're going to pour 1 cup of flour in your bowl. Sound good?
Oh my God.
Are you being a little distracted by the camera? Put your flour in your bowl.
Yeah, I'm being distracted.
You are being distracted by the camera. Okay, so now we need 1 cup of salt. 1 cup of salt divided by 2 is a half a cup of salt. So we are going to get a half a cup of salt each. Here you go. Pour that in. Don't spill it. Go ahead. All right, calm down. Calm down. All right, so 1/2 a cup of salt for your recipe. So when this recipe is divided in half, it's 1 cup of flour and half a cup of salt, and then it'll be half a cup of water. So put your half a cup of salt in your, yep. Okay, so we'll do a half a cup of cold water, and it calls for cold water.
Now we both get to like cold water.
Couple things you guys might want: aprons, and you might want to roll your sleeves up before you get started. Okay.
I already did my cocoa.
I know. Okay, so here you go. Half a cup of cold water for you, and half a cup of cold water for Parker. There you go. Go ahead, pour it in. Okay. Do you guys want to mix it with spoons?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start the mixing, and we're going to mix. Well, we're going to mix with these spoons because this will be easier, okay?
Yeah.
So we're going to mix the dough and see what happens, okay? After we make the dough, I think what we're going to do is we're going to keep it white, and we're going to bake it into some ornament shapes with cookie cutters, and then we're going to paint it afterwards. You guys can use food coloring or watercolor or anything you want to color your dough before you bake it, but we're going to keep it white, and we're going to paint it after we bake it. The recipe for the baking says to bake for 2 hours. That seems like a long time. I'm going to check it before that. For 2 hours at 250 degrees. So here we go. How's your dough looking?
Look at mine.
Looks pretty good. You got to stir it a little bit more. One important part when you're stirring is to always scrape the edges and get all the dough mixed up. So good job, Parker. You keep going. Can you scrape the edges with your spoon? Get all that flour and salt in there. There you go. Good job.
I can do it myself.
You can do it yourself. Okay. All right. Once it starts to get ready, you're going to notice it shaping into a ball. And that's when you know it might be getting close to get ready. I'm wondering if we're going to need...
all done.
You're all done. Okay. I'm wondering if we're going to need a little bit more flour. We'll see.
I hope we did, because I want to keep mixing.
You want to keep mixing? Well, don't you want to make the dough? Ooh. Parker, yours is almost ready. I do think I'm going to put a little bit more flour in Parker's so it's not so sticky. Okay.
And
And
mine.
Maeve, let me check yours out. Let me see. Can I see it for a second? There. Scrape that flour off the edge. Maeve, yours might not need any more flour. Yours is looking pretty good. So once it gets to like this consistency, it's forming into little pieces instead of a mess. That's when you really want to take it out with your hands and roll your sleeves up. I told you guys to roll your sleeves up, but I didn't roll mine up. And that's when you want to start working it with your hands. And that's really going to...
Can I hold
Yeah,
it?
you can. I think that's a great idea. When you start working it with your hands, that's really going to start incorporating the drier pieces into the wetter pieces. So Parker, do you want to do yours with your hands too? Okay. So get it out. It's a little sticky, but this dough is looking great. So what we're going to do next, after we work it a little bit on the counter with our hands, is we're going to roll it out. We'll roll it out on a floured surface so it doesn't stick to our counter.
Mom, I can't do it.
You can't do it? You need some help? Here we go. just work it with your hands. There's really not any technique except to keep squeezing it and squeezing it. And if it's sticking to your hands, the more you work it, the more it'll stick to your hands. That just means you need a little bit more flour.
Look at me.
So the way I incorporate,
my
it is sticking to your hands. The way I incorporate flour is to put the flour on the counter and slowly incorporate it. So if I just put a little bit of flour.
All your students gonna make it too.
I hope so. I hope everybody
Mama,
gets.
I can do it.
Okay, go ahead. So just put the flour on the counter and incorporate it slowly because you don't want to add too much. Parker, I think yours is perfect. It's not sticky, but it is forming a ball. So I'm going to roll it up into a perfect ball.
Like this.
Like this.
Is mine a con?
Yours looks great. Can I
Like
feel
this.
it? Ooh, yep, that's good. It's not sticky anymore. It's not sticking to my hands. And it's just sticking really well to itself. Okay, so here is what we're going to do next. We are going to roll it out. So we got to find a rolling pin, and we got to choose some cookie cutter shapes. We're also going to want a stick to poke through the shapes so we can turn them into ornaments with some ribbon or some string. Okay, so we will make a second video for the rolling out part. You don't have to make ornaments with yours if you don't want to. You can make whatever you want. You could make a snowman, you could make a dog, really anything you would want to make out of clay or Play-Doh. But do keep in mind that if you bake something that's this thick, guys, it's right here. This is yours. If you bake something that's this thick, it probably won't bake in the middle. It'll probably be so thick that it'll burn on the outside and not bake in the middle. So you don't want to bake anything any thicker than your finger, really is probably the rule. All right, we'll come back for a second video for the second part. Does look like pizza dough. It has a lot of the same ingredients.